Okay, so this video is not visually appealing. Deal with it. Um, been keeping fish tanks for over 30 years, and I thought anybody who has this question in mind might find this particular advice useful. And before I forget, I'm making the fucking video. So, you're welcome. Here's the deal. Um, Bob Finner. Very, very smart guy. Very wise in the ways of aquatics. Marine aquatics. If you don't know who Bob Finner is, he was the person to first establish an online help thing for saltwater aquarium enthusiasts. It's called Wet Web Media. I don't know if that's exactly how it went down, but I know at least he's the major contributor as far as saltwater goes on that website. Might be for aquariums in general. Anyways, Wet Web Media, Bob Finner. He's the man. But he doesn't know everything. And he'll be the first one to tell you. But the thing is, there are rules, supposedly rules in the aquarium business, in the aquarium hobby, that you're supposed to follow. And you will be shamed, and people will wag their fucking online fingers at you if you dare post a photo of something like a Picasso triggerfish in a 55-gallon tank. Oh, yeah. Right. Yellow tang in a 55-gallon? Oh, that's not big enough. When, let's see, the guy who, he's like the American reefing guy, he keeps 5 tangs in a 55-gallon, and they're just fine. Some of them, a little big, need to be moved. But there's no set rule. Like, if you're a beginner dumbass and you don't have any real intent of learning how to maintain things, yeah, I suppose those rules are useful. Okay? But if you actually know what you're doing, your common reefing sense, not just common sense, but common sense for reefers, common reefing sense, tells you that, yeah, if I want to, I can keep a small little triggerfish in a 10-gallon tank, probably for a number of years. It might stun its growth a little bit, but that tank, that trigger is going to be, making it pretty obvious by how fast he grows when he's ready for a bigger tank. Okay, and that could be 3, maybe 5 years. That's a pretty long time when it comes to setting up a 10-gallon tank. You can set up a fucking 10-gallon tank in like a half an hour. It's an easy, put it on a fucking table in the corner kind of thing. Okay? You can have your ass a Picasso triggerfish. But if you post a picture of that triggerfish in that little 10-gallon tank online, oh, you're going to get hell for it. But I'm here to tell you, if you know what you're doing, if you know how to keep a Picasso triggerfish in a 10-gallon tank, you can keep him in there until he's 3.5, maybe even 4 inches, 5 inches long. Just fine. Just swimming back and forth in his little fucking 10-gallon tank. Be better in a 20-gallon tall. That's what I used to have one in. But I'm going to tell you I'm going to tell you an even better way to keep him than I kept him when I was a kid. And the happiest Picasso triggerfish I ever had. I had from the age of 11 to 15, I think. And that's when I had the ick problem. First fish I took on a move with me. And he was a hardy fish. He didn't give a crap that the fucking tank needed to cycle again. Apparently I wasn't smart enough to know that just because a tank was established, that when you move shit around, it fucking cycles again. But, so he started out in the 10-gallon after the overheating incident. It was my second attempt. And he wound up getting an upgrade. And eventually I wanted to turn that into, he went to a 29-gallon briefly. And then he went to a 20-gallon. And he wound up going back into the 29-gallon when the 20-gallon cracked and was like leaking on my face while I was sleeping. It was on my nightstand. Okay, but this 20 tall I had in the early mid-90s, it had about 2 dozen or so hermit crabs in the bottom. And it had sargassum floating in it. Okay. And, you know, in retrospect, the water was shitty in that tank. I mean, really, really shitty. I didn't know much about water changes. It was dechlorinated fucking tap water, you know. Had a freshwater fucking incandescent light on it. I don't even know if I had a heater on that damn thing. Okay. But that Picasso triggerfish was happy as hell. Because he got fed regularly. And he had shit to do. Those hermit crabs kept him entertained. Okay, so now 25, God, many years later, many moons have passed. And I'm very much contemplating keeping Petey in that little 10-gallon. And growing him out a little bit. And then either moving him to a 29-gallon for a couple more years after that. Or hopefully having a store by then, right? Or giving him back to the store. Give me a little store credit. But I have a 10-gallon down there. It's got a 2-stage Chinese reef light that I paid, I think, $21 shipped for. Okay. It's got an aqua clear on the back. It's got 2 inches of sand. And it's got a whole bunch of Calerpa. And it's got some hermit crabs running around. It's got bristle worms, starfish, little bristle stars. I'm thinking, I buy a dozen more hermit crabs, put them in there. That will be one happy triggerfish. And he will pretty much stay the fuck away from Tatsuki and Yumachika. Yes, I'm going to keep possibly another pair of clownfish in there with him. I might move Tatsuki and Yumachika into the 55-gallon. I might. Everything's kind of up in the air. I'm thinking about rearranging my living room to set up the 29-gallon, if that gives you any idea how up in the air things are. But more than likely, he's going to be in that 10-gallon with Tatsuki and Yumachika. That's 2 clownfish and a Picasso triggerfish in a 10-gallon tank. Calerpa, sand bed, a little bit of live rock, a little bit, and a fucking protein skimmer. Okay, now, the Aqua Clear. If you're going to keep Picasso triggerfish in a 10 gallon, just let me tell you, because of the amount of feeding, especially considering that I have brood stock and a fucking Picasso in there, which, just makes me want to. I'll probably switch around that pair of clownfish for another pair of clownfish, because Huma being the male, he's a $200 fish. You don't want to keep a $200 fish with Picasso, just on the remote chance that the Picasso could be the slightest dick to him. Huma is going to stay happy and healthy. But, so, maybe I'll swap a different pair of clownfish in there. It's not going to be she's too big. It'll be a pair of true perculas. Ocellaris get bigger than true perculas. Ocellaris don't do as well in a 10 gallon. The salinity. The salinity shifts, Ocellaris don't do well. Now, the reason why a Picasso trigger in particular, not a tang, I wouldn't keep a small tang in a 10 gallon. I wouldn't keep a small angelfish in a 10 gallon. But a Picasso trigger, a triggerfish, just fine. And here's why. You run carbon in it. Okay, that's what I was saying about the feeding and the Aqua Clear. You have a protein skimmer on there. Okay, so a little $20 Aqua Clear with some carbon and a little $35 Rio Nano protein skimmer hang on the back. Okay. Triggerfish doesn't have problems with hole in the head disease. Doesn't have problems with lateral line disease. It doesn't really have any problems being in a confined space. A lot of triggerfish, even if you put them in a big tank, they will find their own little corner, and they will swim up and down in the fucking corner for most of the day. Okay? Like Petey, he's got that whole 10 gallon, he just goes around the fucking here. That's triggerfish can be, funny and have personality, and then they do peculiar things like that. But now, he can be bored as shit in a big old tank and be swimming up and down in a corner. Or he can be happy as hell in a 10 gallon tank because he's got a bunch of caulerpa to swim around and a bunch of hermit crabs to try to hunt. And I say try to hunt because what you'll find is that he gets to sharpen, file down his teeth a lot, okay, which is good for a triggerfish to be able to do, kind of like a hamster, right? in nature, they're cracking shells, and in the home aquarium, you would think that they would suffer from eating just nothing but soft foods, right? Well, in real life, they bite on corals and crustaceans all day long. Now, he gets to try to go bite them fucking hermit crabs. And right before he gets to them, they're going to go... So over and over again, he's going to be trying to get these hermit crabs. And they're going to flinch before he can get to them. And it's going to be both hilarious for you and entertaining for the triggerfish. He's going to be happy as hell until he gets too big. Okay, when he's visibly too big, like he seems like he's crowded, it's time to get a bigger tank, obviously. And I wouldn't keep more than like a 3.5, 4 inch triggerfish in a 10 gallon tank before I started setting myself up a 29 gallon. Okay. And yeah, he'll probably keep growing another fucking half an inch before you get the 29 cycle, but such is life. He'll be just fine in there until he's like 5.5, 6 inches long. Okay. As long as he's got the hermit crabs to fuck around with. Alright? You're better off upgrading to a 55 because that'll buy you a couple more inches. Now, a Picasso triggerfish, females going to want to get to 8, 10 inches long. Okay. The males can get 11 inches up to a foot. Up to a foot long. Okay, that's not to say every specimen is going to get that large, but they can, and you should be prepared for that. If you want to keep them forever, you need to be prepared to have a 120 gallon or bigger tank. Um, Now, most people would say, no, you need him in a 200 and something or bigger because he's a foot long fish. He's got to have room to swim. He doesn't need to have room to swim if he's not going to be bored. Okay? Just like a flame angelfish doesn't need a massive tank if they have a giant wall of rock to hide behind. Now, this can go quite horribly when it comes to any kind of dwarf angelfish because they're very skittish. You got to set up your rock work to where the holes to the safe place are big enough for them to fit through, and there's no holes that are not quite big enough to fit through, and they're going to get stuck in them, and then you'll just wind up wondering where the fuck your angelfish went. It happened to my dad quite a few times. But anyways, I had a very happy flame angelfish growing rather rapidly and a 20 long. And she was just fine until fucking... I think I had like the unholy trinity of fucking plagues in my system. I had Bruchinella, ick, and intestinal worms all at the same time. There might have been velvet in there too. Who knows? I fucking had a damsel. After Mai has been growing back her fins for 2 days now. A damsel starts looking like it's about to die. In the same tank. In the same quarantine. This is the plague. If it's taking down a damsel, shit's fucked up. That's all I'm saying. So yeah. There's not a whole lot of other fish that the rules just don't apply to. But I firmly believe that a Picasso or any one of the Huma varieties, okay, that's the ones that look like Picassos that don't get very big. And as far as trigger, clown trigger and those other ones, they get like 2 feet long. Picasso trigger is a relatively small triggerfish and grows relatively slow compared to other triggerfish. But trying to think if there's any other fish that as a general rule can be kept in the same way. It's really not. Like, I worry about Myrtle in her quarantine because there's no pods in there. It's a file fish. Or the bristle-tailed aptasia file fish. Any kind of tasseled, any kind of file fish at all is going to need pods. Mandarins are going to need pods. Those need larger areas so that their food source that they rely on between feedings doesn't get exterminated. Okay? They have to be able to wander around and eat in such a manner of time that the adults of a spawning pair of whatever that food source is can come out and gather food and do their thing and then get back to their hiding spots and breed before he makes it around there to eat them again, In a small tank, that breeding pair of copepods or whatever it is isn't going to have time to do that. They're going to be, about to go get food, and then here comes the fucking mandarin again. About to go get food, and here comes the fucking mandarin again. Because they usually wait quite a while before they think the coast is clear, and then they go and check. If you've spent way too much time watching shit like this, like I have, you'd know these things. But there's no keeping seahorses in a small tank that hasn't been going for years. There's no shortcuts to things that need natural food supplies. Okay? A triggerfish does not need a natural food supply. It's a dog. It needs to be entertained. Fair enough? 10-gallon tank for one of them little tiny triggers you can buy online. It's a wonderful first saltwater aquarium. A wonderful first saltwater fish to have. And, you know, if you're thinking about taking my advice and getting a 10-gallon tank and putting a little triggerfish in there because you think they're so fucking cute with their little triggers, and they are. They're so fucking cute. One more word of advice I'm going to give you. If you want to have zoanthids or a leather or a Kenya tree, well, they might pick at the glove polyps because they react. So, glove polyps, at your own risk. But, most softies that are considered fowler friendly are triggerfish friendly. If and only if you put them in there before you put the triggerfish in there. So if you want a little mini reef in there, get that going, then put the triggerfish in there. Because if you try to put something in there after you put the triggerfish in there, it's gonna fuck with it. It's going to decide it doesn't like it there. And it's gonna move it and attack it. And it's kind of hilarious. I mean, I'm not saying don't do it. Just don't do it unless you want to watch that and laugh for a while. And probably eventually have to move that coral to another tank. But anyways, that is all. Hope you appreciated my 2 cents on the matter. And sorry, I'm going to put a little clickbait image on this video because I know nobody looks at a video with some fucking guy's shiny forehead half lit up and says, "Here, I want to watch that." But sometimes my 2 cents are worth their weight in gold. If you think so, click the like button. Thanks for watching, y'all. Peace.